Hello, sisters. It's been like more than 2 weeks since I've just done like a stream in the middle of the day, like I usually do. Kind of missed it. Uh, Honestly, what happened is that I had like such big plans for this Lesbians Under Attack series that I put like a lot of pressure on myself. So I'm gonna just do like random streams like this for a while and then get into that, like take the pressure off for a while. And as always, Sister Space always happens on Saturday. So we'll see you on Saturday, me and Rachel, for Sister Space as usual. Okay, so today's stream is going to be extremely controversial. If you came here for like this kind of stuff I posted in January, you're you're gonna get what you're looking for today. Um, all right, so just want to give like a brief background of some stuff before I get into it. What's happened is, hey Carol, hey Kaz, hey Leslie, hey Estrella, hey Puzzle Person. Hello all 10 of the sisters. Right. So, for those of you who keep track of what's going on Dtrans Twitter, for those of you who keep track of the Dtrans subreddit, and I know this has also been happening in some of the Dtrans discords, but to be honest with you, I like never freaking use Discord, so I'm not keeping track of that. For those of you who've been keeping track of Dtrans stuff generally over the last couple years, you might have noticed an uptick in Dtrans men in these spaces. I'm very happy that the Dtrans men are finally speaking about their experiences, right? Helping each other out, helping trans identified people who are questioning, helping the boys, whatever, all that stuff. It's all good, of course, it's all good. Some of my earliest videos, my Benjamin Boyce interviews, one of them, I literally end the interview being like, "Are you a D-trans boy? Like, contact me. I'm trying to help create a network." I gave up on that. So I just want to give like a brief, some of my general knowledge about the history of D-trans men and like community building. So there's one D-trans guy who I kind of think of as like the OG D-trans man organizer. I used to kind of be friendly with him. Well, like friends with him really. He is an interesting person. He was not super ideological about anything. He just wanted to help D-trans men, and he knew that he was a little bit controversial sometimes, or not even controversial, but that he was going to clash with other, like with radical feminists, for example. He didn't agree with me on much, but he understood, like, like we're both doing this kind of stuff online. Like, we don't need to agree on things. We have like common goals, and that's what matters. And he accepted that, and he was cool with that, and that was good because, like, I mean, I don't really like do D-trans stuff generally anymore at all. But when I did, that was my mentality. Anyway, enough about this guy. So he tried to do a lot of community organizing. He tried very, very hard for a long time, for like 6 years or something, which maybe even longer than that, which in D-trans time is like insane. Like, it's a very long time to be involved in actually doing stuff. Because most D-transitioners, like I've told this before on my channel, most D-transitioners, they're very active online for like 2-ish years after they re-identify, and then they kind of go back to uh trying to get on with their lives, basically. Anyway, and I've known like 4 other D-trans men that I've been like friendly with or like friends with, that we like text and stuff like that. All of them were extremely isolated, and my analysis of the situation is this: men, D-trans men, they're basically only in contact with each other when they're in crisis. I mean, up until a few months ago, now I'm pretty sure there's like a D-trans men's Discord server, um, and some other stuff going on. Like, it's kind of hard to find, I think, but there's definitely stuff going on now that wasn't going on a few years ago. D-trans men, for as long as I've been around, have only been in contact with each other when they're in a state of crisis. As soon as they're out of a state of crisis, they isolate, and I think it's something to do with shame. Um, Anyway, why am I talking about all this crap? What is this the precursor to? What I'm talking about is, since there has been like a growing amount of D-trans men, posting their stories on Reddit, interacting with other people on Twitter, right? In the last couple months, there has been a growing feeling among them, a sentiment that they have felt comfortable to share, many of them, that they are resentful that the D-trans women don't center them enough. The D-trans women haven't built networks for them. The D-trans women are not building resources for the men. Okay, this is what I have to say about that. First of all, one of their biggest issues is that D-trans women are very radical feminist aligned. And like historically that's been very, very true. Like the only D-trans women who were organizing before 2010 were radical feminist lesbians, as far as I'm aware. And I think I'm more aware than most people. So feel free to correct me if you have other information, but this is what I know. And the reason they were networking was because they were radical feminists who wanted to consciousness raise together, right? The thing I just said about the way that D-trans men interact with each other. Knowing that, then it makes no sense why they would be networking in this like social way to help each other like escape the ideology. Basically, they don't do that. That's like the way that women operate, it seems. So the D-trans women, they were getting organized. They were consciousness sharing. And since they started that like before 2010, here we are 2022, it's no surprise that there are a lot of like informal networks or even more formalized websites or groups or whatever that are very radical feminist oriented. Maybe they're not radical feminist exactly, but they take on a lot of the same perspectives that radical feminists have. It's no surprise that this is what's happened when we are the ones who've been putting in the work for this long, right? Of course, this is what's happened. Well, we've been putting in the work for like a long, long time, building each other up, adding women in, so that when they retire, there's more women who are still doing it, like moving it forward, right? Where are the D-trans men during this? This might be your question. There have been some in-person support groups that I'm aware of where they try to make them co-ed with D-trans men and D-trans women. The issue with these groups, and the same thing happens in online spaces, is that the vast majority, and I mean, what I'm talking about is really like before the last 2 years, because everything changed like in the last 2 years. Before the last 2 years, like before 2020, the vast majority of D-trans women were lesbians, and the vast majority of D-trans men, of which there was not that many to count, like to make a generalization about, but the ones that I know of were AGPs. So when you put them in like a support group together, what you have is a bunch of lesbians and a straight man. The dynamic is fucked. Like now the dynamic is that these women cannot actually consciousness raise. They cannot actually like share their experiences and their feelings and stuff because the man will get butthurt. Right? Like, so my point is that women have tried, the D-trans women have tried to support the D-trans men in the past. And every time they've tried, the conclusion has been, oh, this is not good for us. Like, we're putting our time and energy into this to help ourselves, and we want to help them too. But if it's a detriment to us, is it worth it for us to be doing this? And the conclusion has always been no. Okay, whatever. In the last 2 years, things are very different. There are because of affirmation only, it is not only the gender nonconforming, self-hating lesbians with eating disorders and whatever. They're not the only ones who've been transitioning, right? Now you have everyone and their dog transitioning for any freaking reason. So obviously who's detransitioning is a lot more diverse now than it was a couple years ago. And ideologically, the people who are detransitioning, like I honestly wouldn't even consider them like detransitioners in the sense of when I re-identified what we considered a detransitioner, because a lot of them still completely believe in gender ideology. They just think it doesn't apply to them, or like they made a mistake or something. So the ideological diversity and like the diversity of who is detransitioning has broadened a lot in the last 2 years. Anyway, what's my point with all this? I just wanted to give you guys some context of like the history of the community building that's been going on, so that when you see these butthurt men's rights activists whining about how the women are so mean and the radical feminists made them transition and the radical feminists are the reason that AGPs abuse their wives and all this crap, you will see that these men are resenting the women who have put in blood, sweat, and tears over like more than a decade to build this network, this community that we have. And the men are whining because they didn't fucking build it for themselves and they feel entitled to take what's ours. You want your fucking network of detrans men? Good for you. Go and build it your fucking self. Don't shit on radfems about it. Actually, okay. How do you F11? Switched from Mac to Windows and it's like very disturbing. Okay. So the first thing, I want to show you these two. This is how I first became aware of it. There's this woman on Twitter who posted a couple of screen caps, and I was like, holy shit, what's going on with this guy? I'm trying to figure out if I should like conclude with this or end with this. Maybe I'll talk about it now and I'll also conclude with it because you know my stream is going to be like 3 hours long as usual. So before I talk about this guy and what he's been doing specifically, I want to talk a little bit about what has been the consequence of what he's doing recently. And it's not even specifically what he's doing that's led to consequences. I don't want to like puff up his ego. I'm sure someone's going to send this to him. It's more about a lot of the GCs and their reaction and what has the consequence of that been. So this man in particular, he has been platformed by some of the big GC organizations. Okay, I'm not naming any names. You can look it up yourself. I'm not trying to lambast everyone. I just want to point at this guy in particular because he's quite an extreme example of what it is that I'm trying to point out. So this guy in particular, he has been oh my god, have they really said this? What about the claim that radfems were infiltrating the G trans men spaces and harassing them? I find that very doubtful. But like, also, okay, not to be like an asshole, but from my personal experience of community building, if that's what's happening, that's because you're not fucking vetting the people you're letting in. That's a security issue. If the radfem is infiltrating a men's only group, that could mean a TRA is infiltrating because your vetting process is shit. So you need to get your shit together. Like, everything I do, whenever I hope you are aware of, like, I hope that if you watch my channel that you got this message by now because I talk about it so much. Everything you do, online, in person, everything you do needs to be first and foremost security based. Security needs to be your number one concern at all times. Everything you build will fall apart like that because one person infiltrated. That's it. Everything needs to be security based. So if that's really what's happening, they need to tighten up their security. Okay. And I really honestly fucking don't believe that because like, why would we do that? Okay, whatever. Anyway, what was my point? Okay, so this guy, he has been platformed by some big GC organizations, and through that he has become, online friendly. Like if you're looking at his Twitter, right? Or if you're looking at like his videos, the videos that he's in on YouTube, he is friendly with a lot of GCs that are seen as like big names, that are seen as, I don't know, like at this point kind of like the GC institution, if that makes sense. The result of this, I have had many messages on social media and emails from women. Oh, I've stopped donating to this organization. Oh, I've stopped watching this organization's YouTube videos. Oh, I've unsubscribed from this person's Substack. Oh, I've unfollowed this person on Twitter. Why am I talking about this? Is it because I want everybody to go unfollow XYZ people? I'm not even going to name who these GC people are because that's not my goal. My goal is to say, when you have a group of people, detransitioners, which are by and large, hey Komotashio, who are by and large women, and who are by and large transitioning because of like over the top, constant misogyny. The moment you have a couple of people like acknowledging these men's misogyny and saying this is the detrans man perspective, we need to acknowledge their perspective. They're treating it like an intellectual exercise. These detrans men, they are like literally men's rights activists. They are literally incels. I'm not being hyperbolic. I mean literally. I'm going to show you the receipts soon. I'm just trying to set it up. They are literally men's rights activists. And you have a bunch of these big name institution type GCs now who are breathing life into that and saying like, well, we need to listen to the men. This is their perspective. I agree you need to listen to the men and their perspective so you can get, because I've always said the reasons that females are transitioning is different than the reason the males are transitioning. The reasons the males are detransitioning is different than the reason that the females are detransitioning. Of course, get their perspective. Good for you. When they're being over the top fucking misogynistic, over the top like corrective rape like levels of lesbophobia. Obviously, tons of detrans women are going to lose trust in you. Tons of feminists who have been supporting you for years are going to stop supporting you. Obviously, I literally know at least one detrans woman who has. This was the straw that broke the camel's back for her. She's stepping back from activism after this. And she is not a nobody. She has done a lot of stuff. Like a lot of stuff in the last couple years. Like, you know who she is. I'm not mentioning who she is. But like this is the consequence of breathing life into the misogyny of these men by justifying it as, oh well, this is their position, this is their opinion, this is, yeah, it's their opinion, sure. Is it an opinion that is useful? Is it an opinion that, like, I don't fucking understand what's happening. I mean, I totally understand what's happening. Everybody's a misogynist, and they've been like repressing that, and so they got this excuse now to like be misogynists, so they're all jumping at it. Anyway, okay. Yeah. Beansprout knows what's up. They're totally fucking MRA. Beansprout says, the male detrans turned that misogyny around and internalized it on themselves. The feminists made me do it because they talk about male violence and toxic masculinity. Major eye roll. Completely agree. Yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to like say the outcome of this is that tons of feminists who have been really trying to support detrans men for a long time are taking a step back and saying, wait, who is it that I'm supporting and what are they doing? Do I want to support these people? Tons of feminists who have been supporting like the big GC institutions who are trying to like mainstream detrans narratives, basically, is how I see it, have taken a step back and said, you know what? I don't want to support these organizations anymore. There are literally detrans women activists who are taking a step back and saying, I'm trying to put my story out there. I'm trying to do work and create resources with these organizations or for these organizations or in collaboration with these organizations. And they are supporting a man who literally wants lesbians to not exist. Literally is like, I mean, he's a men's rights activist. He's an incel. He's a lesbophobic incel, okay? The result of this is what I really fucking care about, less than the actual individual. Okay. So. This is like a Benji soapbox, but I didn't want to make it a soapbox because I wanted to leave it up after. I mean, we'll see. Like, maybe this will get copyright striked or like mass reported or something. Who knows? We'll see what happens. All right. Okay. How do we do this now? I'm going to show you guys. So this is where I first saw these like 3 tweets from the 3 screen caps from this one Twitter account. And then after that, a very lovely feminist sent me sent me a hello all the guys. I only said hi to like the first couple of you. Myron, go back to the beginning of the video and watch a few minutes. Anyway, so yeah, I first saw these 3 screen caps, and then this woman sent me this Google Doc full of receipts, and I haven't read the receipts in the Google Doc. You know, I like to do things like fresh reaction on my channel. Oh, one last thing before we get going. Okay. We all know lots of GCs and radical feminists, they very openly acknowledge this was something that was kind of in dispute like 3 or 4 years ago, and now it's very in the mainstream knowledge for us. Tons of the men who are transitioning are very misogynistic, extremely misogynistic. Like, not like misogynistic like, oh, I can wear woman face. Misogynistic like, a woman's place is to serve her husband, so I think that if I can serve a husband, then I can be a woman. Like, you know, these like, oh, like over the top incel men's rights activist types, right? If they're transitioning, presumably they can detransition. It shouldn't be a shocking, mind-boggling revelation that they're already misogynists, then they transition, then they circle jerk with each other. I don't know, I use that word too much. Then they radicalize each other into like even more extremist perspectives, that like men's rights activist perspectives. And then if they detransition for whatever reason, it's not like they're going to wake up one morning and forget all of the years of misogyny they've ingrained in themselves and each other. So, to me, it's insane how many GCs are supporting these types of men and being like, this guy is just like emblematic of the issue. He's the most extreme case. He's not the only one that matters. But it's crazy to me how many GCs are like, blanket, we need to support these men, given what we know about who are the men transitioning and why are they transitioning. Okay. It's an apt term. That's why I use it all the time because it's just so perfect, but it's kind of a dirty word. Okay, whatever. Um, all right. So I'm going to show you these couple of tweets first. What am I doing here? Here we go. All right. So I'm going to read the screen cap. I intentionally attack radfems and their shibboleths, as well as other leftist shibboleths, more broadly because detrans need to be decoupled from radical feminism and the left. Other men are saying it. Women are saying it too. But so far, the women have been too terrified. Okay. Just the premise of the tweet is stupid, first of all, because as I mentioned, there are literally like there are detrans networks on the internet of women who are not radical feminists. There are detrans networks on the internet that are co-ed. There are detrans networks on the internet that are all men. There's so many detransitioners. TikTok is great for this. There are so many detransitioners who still believe 100% in gender ideology. They just think that they made a mistake. Okay? So, he's trying to say that detrans is seen as like a monolith. Oh, hey, Lorelai. I love Lorelai. She's one of my favorite ladies ever. Yeah, they're trying to say that like, well, if you are a detransitioner, this is like the only narrative, the only group that's open to you. That is fucking bullshit. And also, it shows to me how new these people are. And it's like, okay, it's not the fact that you're new that's cringy to me. It's the fact that you're new and you don't understand that you're fucking new. If you've only been around for a few months, like literally, and I have the same issue with like radfems and GCs. If you've only been around for like 2 months or something, you need to take a step back and talk to the people who've been here for a while to understand like the state of things. Like I first became acquainted with detransitioners in 2014. I didn't detransition until 2017, I think. Well, whatever. But like, and even when I got there, I was like, oh shit, these women have been doing work for years. Clearly, these people don't have that perspective. Okay. Let's read the tweet's response. Maybe if detrans men had spent a decade building their own networks and virtual spaces like detrans radfems, they would exist. It's just resentment. I've known 2 detrans men who tried very hard to get detrans men organized for years. No one bit. That's the fault of radfems, obviously. I roll. Yeah, very much agree with this. Okay. This is the other one that kind of got me started looking into this dude. So, trigger warning for like old school lesbophobia. Like, actually, this makes me laugh because it's so over the top. I can't imagine how fucking boring and bleak it must be to be a lesbian today. Lying down next to each other, holding power tools at each other's crotches, occasionally swapping spit. I'm sure all the straight ladies are just lining up for a taste of that action. I don't even have any comments on this. I think it speaks for itself. Okay, next tweet. Like, dude, this is an incel. Do we know what an incel is? An incel is an involuntary celibate. It's a man who like can't get laid and he resents women for it. That's what this fucking is. This is not some like special D-trans perspective. This is just a man. This is a man being a man. This is not some special D-trans thing. Okay. Okay. Quote, lesbians know how to love women so much better and so much purer than men do. End quote. Is that why you guys move in together after knowing each other for 2 weeks, smoke massive amounts of weeds to feel anything in each other's presence, and beat each other senseless all the time? Um, just what the fuck is this, bro? It's so lesbophobic. And like on the day that he was tweeting these things, a bunch of the like GC institution, as I called them, they were like, and when I say that, I mean like high profile GCs who have podcasts and websites and do interviews and write books and stuff like that. That's who I'm talking about. A bunch of them were liking his tweets or even his response to like these types of tweets on that day. I was just like, what the fuck? Anyway, um, lesbian into power tools seeks same. Yeah, same dude. There's one of the like quote tweets of this. Some woman made a joke about like a Makita, and then another woman made a joke, and she was like, "I'm a Milwaukee woman. Makita won't get me going." I thought that was funny. Okay, Um, let's change screens here without showing you guys anything you shouldn't see. All right. Okay. Oh yeah, no. Also, Kaz, thank you. Okay, I meant to clarify. Thank you for. It's okay. Kaz says lesbians don't beat each other, men do, and those stats are probably skewed more by recent people claiming to be lesbians while dating Tims. Yeah, there's this one study that shows that lesbians have very high rates of domestic violence. Um, but what that study actually is telling you, like if you read the study like in detail, right, instead of just like what people's like summary of the study is that when lesbians have relationships with men before they come out, they have very, very high rates of domestic violence. So the study is not saying that lesbians beat each other up. It's saying like over a lesbian's lifetime, lesbians face a lot of domestic violence, but it's not from other women. Like I'm not saying well lesbians or don't have any domestic violence. Of course they do. But I'm just saying like this specific idea, it's based on that study and it's the misrepresentation of that study. Okay. Yeah. You guys even know what it is. Like, look, you guys even know what I'm talking about. Thank you. Okay. All right. Oh, Carol says one therapist said in private she didn't support this, but I don't think she said it in public. Yeah. All right. Okay. So, like I said, I haven't. Wow, 46 of you. I guess you've been missing me. um, like I said, I haven't read this whole thread. I've just looked at the first couple of tweets, so it's my fresh reaction. All right. I don't know when this is. 4 hours from the screen cap. Oh no, here it is on the 5th. So this is what date did the whole thing happen where the stuff was leaked with the Roe v. Wade? I can't remember what date that was, but all right. So I'm just gonna read stuff out and give you some reactions. If it's kind of boring, I might skip through it because there's quite a lot of receipts in this file. Going to high school in a wealthy New England suburb, girls around me practically thought of abortions as a rites of passage. It was something to be joked about. They didn't take it seriously. If anyone told them, you'd be told you hate women and are restricting their autonomy. Most of them never got abortions. The few who did were ashamed, but rather than take any kind of moral lesson from that shame, they just complained that other people were making them feel ashamed. Hence, shout your abortion. Some woman replied, you do realize pregnancy and birth can be a death sentence for women and girls? Maternal mortality is unacceptably high. About 295,000 women died during and following pregnancy and childbirth in 2017. Limpida replied, they should be allowed to abort if their life is threatened, not at will. Okay, so like I was saying, he's a men's rights activist. We're going to see more of this, his opinion on abortion. But, this is not like a men who think this and the other stuff that he thinks, they are men's rights activists. End of story. Okay. Um, I think it's really funny how he's like, yeah, all of these like rich white girls in, I mean, he doesn't say white, but I'm pretty sure he, at other points, he talks about like the white liberal feminists. So, um, that these rich girls in New England, like they all thought abortion was a rite of passage. And then he's like, most of them never got abortions. Uh, to me, this is like teenagers being teenagers. And also for the girls who did get abortions, it's like it makes sense to me that they would like joke about it or make light of it because it's like a very like intense thing to go through when you're young. Um anyway, also I just like to point out at this point while reading this, um I'm pretty sure that in the US, the statistic is that over 50% of the women who are getting abortions are on birth control and like the birth control failed. So it's not like the way that he talks about it and men's rights activists talk about it is like women are just having tons of unprotected sex all the time just for fun because they don't care and they're like happy to have abortions every other weekend. Like that's not the case. Okay. Um just gonna read some of these stuff and try not to react to every single tweet. We'll be here for 7 hours. So even if a man is fully willing to commit, preparing himself to be a father, ready to marry on site, wants to be with his girlfriend slash wife every step of the way, he should still be able to abort without his input for the simple reason she doesn't want to have a kid? Yes. I think it's interesting he's at least acknowledging that, like, abortion is it has to do with a lifelong commitment instead of just, like, the pregnancy itself, but, like, fucking yes, bro. Oh, I mean, okay, I could spend, like, 10 minutes talking about that tweet. Okay. A baby is not a mere consequence, it's a reason for the parents, however young, to step up to the plate and start living the rest of their lives together. Funny how it takes two to make a baby, but only one to decide that baby shouldn't be born. Okay, this is so funny to me because for those of you who don't know, I was like an accident and my parents were quite religious. So they like got married because my mom was pregnant. And I can tell you, this is not a recipe for a happy childhood or a healthy marriage. And I would highly recommend that if you are in that situation, you should like this perspective I think is not great for your like long-term happiness and the health of your potential child or whatever. Okay. Um I love how a baby is not a mere consequence. It's a reason for the parents, however young, to step up to the plate. Like it's it's easy for him to say that as a man because he's not really going to face consequences if he gets someone pregnant, is he? Like anyway, he probably couldn't even name what the consequences are that the women are trying to escape. Okay. HA says it's basically, well, this is kind of weird. It's like in my face. Um, it's basically a female experience to talk about whether you would get an abortion with your girlfriends. LOL. Yeah. I think it's kind of like coming to terms, like processing, like what does that really mean? It's kind of like an intense thing, you know? Okay. Uh, Bean Sprout, Dr. Bean, the statistician is here giving us stats, or at least affirming my stats. She says, yes, you are correct. 50% is roughly the same here in UK for birth control failure too, from memory. Okay. Gigi says men can joke about rape, genocide, whatever else, but we can't even joke about abortion. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm gonna skip that. I mean, you can pause to read if you want, like later or whatever. Okay. Okay, so this tweet right here is like major men's rights activist vibes, like major incel vibes. Like if you went on like an incel forum, you would see men saying this left, right, and center. Abortion allows women to have consequence-free sex, which men don't like because they want to control women and how consequence the way they think of it. I mean, I don't believe in like any of the concepts I'm talking about. The way they think of it is that if women are having consequence-free sex, it means they're being like loose, like they're letting anybody sleep with them, and the men want to like own the women, so they don't like this idea. Abortion allows women to have consequence-free sex and encourages both sexes to have sex that way. Women who are just after, or sorry, men who are just after pussy don't even have to try. See, this is he's resenting the men who are getting laid because he's an incel and he's not getting laid. If they wear nice clothes, laugh at her jokes, lie about their intentions, and pick up a flower off the street, it's easy. So he's an incel. Yes, we all see that. He's an incel. Okay. Like I wasn't just saying he's an incel like hyperbolically. He literally everything he's saying is like incel rhetoric. Okay. Like this tweet, my concern with birth control is not the same as my concern with abortion. I see abortion as infanticide. I mean, good for you, bro. Whatever. Most birth control I see as medically dangerous to women's health because it is. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think it's very birth control is very fucked up because but that's as a result of like barely any fucking research into women's reproductive health or women's bodies. Okay. And the trade-off is I can have sex whenever I want now, which isn't healthy either. But dude, you're only saying that because you're jealous no one will sleep with you. Like obviously, right? Okay. Okay. Oh, Dobrich is here. Yo, is your name based on like Michael Dobrik? Dobrik? Or are you just is that like a coincidence? Anyway, whatever. Okay. Um it just this guy's misogyny. I don't know how long I should do this for. I'm gonna try to keep it not too long, but you know, every time I say that, the stream is like 6 hours. Okay. A few times now, feminists have used their rapes as gotchas to get me to shut up. Let's all just pause here for a second. Who else have you seen use this exact mechanism recently? TRAs. When lesbians say, I don't want to have sex with penises, they say you're weaponizing your trauma. What's this guy saying? You're weaponizing your trauma. Oh, it's a wordplay from man to chick. Okay, I see. Oh, Doberman person for. Oh, it's a dog. Okay, I see it now. I didn't realize that was a dog. I get it. Okay. Okay. Um, so that's a personal problem you should all talk about with a therapist instead of unsympathetic internet strangers whom your only interaction with is to vindicate your belief that all men are evil. I mean, his as far as I can tell, he had like a girlfriend in high school who like came out as a lesbian and broke up with him. And that's the impetus for everything. That's like his origin story. And based on that, he's decided that all women are like frigid bitches who are evil and hate men and they like don't just hate men like they're mean to them, but like they want to murder them or something crazy. So for him, his one interaction, which didn't involve like, you know, major physical trauma, is enough for him to paint all women as like evil. But women facing like a lifelong trauma that they know like most other women have experienced, that's not a good enough reason for women to make generalizations about men. Like, okay, bro, that's not hypocritical at all. Okay. This is so funny. Did you see the next tweet? Do you see this shit? The worst male leaders display feminine traits. They take shit personally. Bro, who's taking shit personally? It's you. Okay, okay. They take shit personally, which makes them hot headed and lose control of themselves. A leader who isn't in control isn't a leader. Women, by and large, prefer to be led. If it's sexist to say so, then it's sexist to acknowledge reality. Um, I mean, I obviously disagree with that. I just think it's funny that he's like, men who take things personally are feminine and weak. And it's like, bro, you're taking things personally. So does that mean you're feminine and weak? Guys are so delicate. Fucking agree, Doberchick. All right. Possible person says, I like that we're weaponizing our trauma, but they aren't weaponizing sexuality and brute force by assaulting us. Exactly. This is giving me major like Jordan Peterson vibes. This whole all of this stuff here. Like this evolutionary biology like crap. Not biology, fuck. Evolutionary psychology stuff. Um oh, of course. Kaz solved it for us. But Benji, he's taking things personal in a macho way because he has a peen and that makes it different. Of course. Okay. I don't expect women to act like men. I expect women to follow men's leads in areas of life they are, on average, ill equipped to handle, like politics. Bro, like all of the political leaders in the world are men, like by and large. I mean, let's look at Canada. Canada, right? It's like doing the worst with like a lot of shit right now. Um with like the trans crap. Like we had a female prime minister for like a couple of months once in the 90s. Other than that, all of the leaders of our like almost all of the leaders of our provincial or federal parties and like so the opposition of the government and the prime ministers have all been men. Do you think Canada is like a dreams? And okay, whatever. I just never mind. I shouldn't even engage on this crap, but like it's just so stupid. What are you fucking talking about? Yeah. Julia, politics, what else? Like starting wars and all? Yeah, exactly. All right. And now I'll take my misogyny accusation. That's what I should rename the stream. The misogyny accusation. Um, okay, just like more men's rights crap. Politics should always be maintained by a male frame. Men uphold and enforce boundaries. Says the man who doesn't want women to have boundaries. Hypocrite much? Well, I guess from his perspective, he's not being a hypocrite. He's just following his principles, which are that women exist to serve men. And anything other than that, they need to shut the fuck up and stay in their place. We are able to make these delineations easily. Are you, dude? Are you able to make delineations easily? Because from this, I don't think it's that easy for you. You seem to be losing your crap. Our competition cements bonds. Not true for women. If women want to play politics, they should act like men. If not, they should stay away. Well, thanks for your opinion. Okay. Most of the feminists out here have quite openly and clearly, wait, sorry, have stated quite openly and clearly that they do not care about the boys. They care only about the girls. They don't care about your sons, and they will never do anything for him. Sorry to say it, but it's time to leave them behind. Okay, but bro, what do the boys need? Like, I'm not saying that there's nothing that could be better in like the upbringing and society of boys. Of course, things can be better. But what is it the feminists need to do about it? Like, is there something that only the feminists can do? Whatever it is that he's doing for the boys, can't you do it yourself? Like, if your supposition is that the women are too preoccupied with like young girls, why can't the men be preoccupied with the boys? Um, I don't know. Okay. Then he goes on amazingly. The female detransitioners, on the other hand, you can trust. Just not these childless crones who hate half the human race and have to hide it behind esoteric justifications they cooked up in their own heads. Um, so as usual with men, with misogynist men, there's like the good women and the bad women, like the right kind of men and the bad kind of, or so the right kind of women, the right bad. So he's done that with the detransitioners, the female detransitioners, the childless crones who hate half the human race and have to hide behind feminism as far as he's concerned. They're the bad detransitioners. So you can trust female detransitioners as long as they're not radfems. All right. I think it's funny because I've checked on I've checked on his Twitter like yesterday or the day before or something like that. Anyway, he's like baiting feminists and being like, "I want you to debate me because like I know your ideology better than you do" or some crap like that. And but here he's like, it's just esoteric justifications they cooked up in their own heads. So like, do you think feminism? Like, have you read feminism and you know what it is, or you think it's just random bullshit? Anyway, some woman must have disagreed with him. He's like, "You're the one who should be quiet. You're in hostile territory, lady, so get fucking lost." Like the mentality, bro. Okay. Okay. Someone's asking who is this person. Go back to the first like 20 minutes of the video. I kind of explain like random, like not random, like the general gist of like what happened, like the community building of detrans women, what the detrans men, how that went down, who is this guy in a general sense, and what the reaction has been to all of this. Um, Someone's sending me screenshots. Is it about this? 1 second. Oh, also, as always, if you're watching me right now and you're like, oh, I have a really good screenshot about this thing, just email it to me. I might even open it during the stream. Oh, never mind. Okay. Okay. I'll probably end up writing all 4 of those essays at some point, but let me just explain the problem with female fetishists in particular, and why they might be more dangerous than the male ones. Okay, he says might here, but later on he does not very might about it. He's very black and white about it. Men are very object-oriented in general, agreed. Which means male fetishes are more specific to body parts, garments, poses, etc. They are also very physical, since the need for orgasm for full sexual fulfillment is greater than for women. Dude, way to prove that you haven't like ever satisfied a woman in bed, that you think that women have no desire for orgasms. If you think this, I think what's happened is you have been so abysmal in bed that the women have thought it's not worth it to ask you to help them actually be sexually satisfied by the end of the expedition. Anyway, okay. Like just okay, whatever. Okay. Um they are highly motivated and assertive, right? Because women are never those things. Um Women are more socially oriented, which I agree with, have lower libidos, disagree, and are more passive. A woman seeking to dominate someone sexually will usually not seek to do so in the kind of overt, assertive way that men do. They are covert, they are subtle, they are insidious. Okay, this is the whole like concept that, women, they're like sneaky. It's like the Adam and Eve thing. Women are sneaky and sinners, and they're like hurting men by being sneaky sinners. And even if men are doing like bad sexual shit to women, at least the women know what's going on. But the men, they're really incompetent. You can't expect them to think for themselves or analyze social situations. Um, like just covert, subtle, and insidious. Right? Sure. Okay. Just everything I'm reading, it's just screaming in my head. Men's rights activist, men's rights activist, men's rights activist. Okay. Generally speaking, women use sex to get what they want, whereas for men, sex is an end within itself. Okay. However, for those women whom sex is an end within itself, especially fetishistic sex, living vicariously through someone else is more of an option than it is for men. You rarely see male fetishists groom children or vulnerable adults that they don't intend to defile themselves. Completely fucking incorrect. Completely fucking incorrect. If you look at interviews of convicted pedophiles within the last couple of years, a lot of them will say, it's been great since like the advent of the smartphone because all the kids are groomed before we get to them. Like they're I have the term that I use for this is communal grooming. That I first observed this in the queer community, but now it's hard not to observe it everywhere. You know, you have one creepy guy who messages you on TikTok. You think it's a bit weird, you're not quite sure. Next year, you have another creepy guy messages you on Instagram. You think it's a bit weird, but you're kind of used to it now. It's not that strange. You have another creepy guy messaging you on Twitter a couple months later. Now you're primed for this. You're used to this. You don't have any barriers up for this crap. Like it's like a chain of grooming a lot of the time now. Very rarely in the modern era is grooming like one guy finds one little girl and like completely grooms her and then he like victimizes her. It's very rarely like that anymore. This is a very outdated understanding of what um oh, you sent me something. Uh which app are we friends on? I'm going. Ooh. Dr. Bean took some notes on a Twitter space he was in. Okay. How far are we into this? Are we like 7 out of 27? Okay. I'm going to try to kind of not get too in the weeds with this because like I said, we don't want to be here for 7 hours. Anyway, also this thing about living vicariously through someone else is more of an option than it is for men. Okay. So, let's take that specific point on good faith. So, he's saying men are fetishists, right? And if men are when they're engaging in fetishistic sex, the sex itself is the satisfying part. To me, that means like the violence and whatever, that's like they're doing that and that's okay because at least it's straightforward. If the women are living vicariously, like experiencing their sexual fetishes vicariously, which like I would argue the concept of a fetish in a woman and a man is so radically different that you shouldn't even be using the same language, but whatever. Um, Somehow that's like bad. And I'm like, but then that means the woman is not actually like physically hurting someone with her fetish if she's doing it vicariously. Like if she's experiencing it secondhand. Has she like somehow made that happen and she's like sitting back to watch it happen? Like I just don't understand how that's worse. If that's what if what he's saying is what he believes, how is it worse? Myron, women is bad because complex. Yes. Okay. Wow, Beansprout, very accurate. Women just whole and baby bag. That does seem to be what he thinks. Okay. We rarely see male fetishists groom children or vulnerable adults that they don't intend to defile themselves. Completely inaccurate. You do actually see that all the time with female fetishists, especially the ones fascinated with rape or domination. The goal is not to be dominated themselves, but to live vicariously through a person they are um, preparing, grooming, serving up to be dominated. They want to be the one being raped, as sick as that may sound, but they also settle for manufacturing victims for the men/men they wish they would take them. Okay, okay. I don't necessarily disagree with him that there are women who do this. But I think by and large, the women who do this now, it's because of sex positivity. And they think that by like encouraging other women to get into like rape role play or something like that, or like consensual non-consent is the current terminology that's being used. They think that they're helping women to like, you know, I'm not trying to justify it because I obviously think it's horrific and disgusting and leads to trauma. But they think that they're like helping women be liberated, helping women experience like good sex or something. He is making it sound like all of the women who engage in this like normalization of like rape role plays or rape fetishes these days, they're doing it because they want other women to be traumatized so they can sit on the sidelines and not be traumatized. I don't That is completely outside of my experience of what he's talking about. Like from what I know about this topic, what he's saying makes no fucking sense to me. Oh, I'm not on Twitter that much, so Dr. Bean says, I'd also point out these tweets are not days apart. He goes on tirades for hours at a time for several days. He needs to get offline and find a hobby/job. Yeah. Okay. That's something else too is so Carla Homolka, what was the name of the fucking serial killer guy? I can't remember his name. Whatever. So a serial killer rapist from I think St. Catharines, Ontario, somewhere in Canada. He This is the common thing you see with serial killers where there will be like a man who's a serial killer and his wife. I mean, it's not common, but you do observe this. His wife or his girlfriend or whatever, Paul Bernardo, thank you. Um will like get the women for him to abuse. Why is she doing that though? Is she doing that as a means to her own ends? Would she be doing that if the man was not involved? No fucking way. Women only do that when there's a man who wants to have more victims. When women are doing this, most of the time, like if it actually leads to like a real physical assault, like if it actually is a real it's not like a role play. Well, I mean, let's not get into the difference between a role play and a real assault, but like when they are not in their minds, they know it's going to be a real assault. They're not thinking this is like a sex game, right? They're literally only doing it because of the men around them. They're trying to please the men around them, or they're trying to serve the men up victims so that they themselves are not victimized, like as a protection. He's making it sound like it's like, oh, just for fun because they're all like sick in the head or something. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Okay. Um anyway, okay, whatever. To me, basically, he's mixing in a lot of really disconnected things with each other. Like here he brings up mothers uh you know, giving their children over to pedophilic stepfathers. I know this happens. I've known people this has happened to. But what does that have to do with like this other stuff? These are completely different things. Like he's trying to say this is all like one type of woman who does all of these different things and that it's all one type of motivation. That is completely fucking inaccurate. Okay. See, now he's bringing it into about transition, as if grooming other women for sexual trauma is the same as intentionally grooming them into transition. I mean, I think that one can be a factor in the other, but it's not the same woman doing the same thing for the same reason. Like he's equivocating things that make no sense together. Um, exactly. 15th Jessica summed this up very succinctly. Oh, yay, men acting like women are the real villains when women enable other men doing awful things. Yeah. Okay, let's move past this. Okay. Okay, so I'm not going to read all these tweets, but here he's equivocating the actions. He's no, he's assigning the actions of liberal feminists to a radical feminist ideology, which makes no fucking sense. Um, it's like very Dunning Kruger his understanding of feminism, which I think is to be expected because if you're this misogynistic, it's not like you can, in good faith, try to understand what the fuck feminists are saying. Um, yeah, like right here, he's like he's saying that anti-transsexualism has always been a fringe position among feminists. That just shows me that you don't understand like the complexities of the different categories of women who call themselves feminists. Okay. I'm being sent stuff. Very exciting. Okay. I might have to close this down and like no, I can make another Google Doc on my phone. If you send me shit on my phone, I do have that one. person who sent me that. Uh, yeah, if you send me stuff, I can make another Google Doc and open it up in a second. Okay. Oh my god. It's okay. There's so many things going on all at once here. Keep blocking me. I got plenty more quote unquote misogyny where that came from. So he doesn't think misogyny is a thing. Shocking. I'm sure he thinks misandry is a real thing. Make sure you spread the word too, so that the ROGD parents you've sucked into your obesity folds come my way instead of trusting deranged PCOS sufferers ruminating on their inner lives, on the inner lives of people they see as animals. I don't get it though. Didn't he think that women need to be more like men? So shouldn't women with higher rates of T be like held in better esteem by him? Is that just me? Is that I feel like that's confusing to me. Okay. Thank you for the email. Okay, before I even like get into this whole thread, he says, as someone who was in a very fucked up relationship with a feminist for a long time, believe me when I say many feminists are only feminists because they get off on emasculating men via quote unquote topping from the bottom, so to speak. Okay. I think it's funny that he chose this phrase specifically, like topping from the bottom, like that's a gay man's thing. Or okay, whatever. Um Also though, so a lot of different types of women call themselves feminists. We don't know anything about this woman he was with. For all we know, she's a liberal feminist who are like men's tears, blah 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 blah, and it's like they have like no actual analysis or like any concrete things that they want to do to make things better. It's all just like talk, right? Or he could have been with a radical feminist. Either way, um, there's another prominent GC man whose mother is a radical feminist. I'm not going to name him, but it's very clear that he resents all women very strongly, and he resents feminists in particular quite strongly. And to me, it's like it just goes to show, like, okay, you for the those of you who are watching, I call myself a separatist. Like this shouldn't be like a shocking opinion. But when I see shit like this, I'm kind of like there's no hope for men because like if being around feminists just makes you hate women more and not be able to like understand why they're so upset or why they're so anxious to make things better for the women who are being like, women in the future, like there's no fucking hope for men. Okay, whatever. Um Expecting their boyfriends to perform all manner of disgusting sexual acts irrespective of boundaries, and if we don't, then we're selfish entitled men, and if we do, then we're proof that the rape anxiety slash fantasy running in their heads 24/7 is 100% justified. Okay, what the fuck? Like, this to me is such a clear cut case of like one individual um who had a very, very bizarre experience. And I'm like, okay, if anyone of any like let's take like who's the man, who's the woman, let's take that out of it. If you are in a sexual setting and someone expects you to do something in bed that you don't want to do, you shouldn't like I mean, as far as it seems like he did the thing that he didn't want to do and now he resents her. Maybe you could have like left and not done that thing. You think he's gay? Interesting. I don't know much about him to be honest with you. Hell says I'm gonna go ahead and say he's lying. Who's to know? I don't know. I'm not even gonna read this. You can read it. Okay. Oh, here. Somebody just sent this to me. I really, especially after a tweet like this, it really um is insane to me how many of like the GC institution, like I said, the professionals, the ones who are in organizations, the ones who are being interviewed on national television programs, the ones who are writing books. It's crazy to me how many of them still are engaging positively with this guy at this point after this kind of a fucking tweet. And what's the date on this? This was in March. Okay. If you're a radical feminist following me, I want you to understand that I hate absolutely everything you stand for and believe in. I have had enough of your insane, cunty bullshit to last a lifetime. Go eat some pussy or something instead of pretending to ride my dick just because I'm a D-troon. So I don't know what this person said, obviously, because they're on private. But Limpita said, they need men to continue gang raping women in order to justify their NGO paychecks. Which fucking radical feminists are working for NGOs? Like I'm actually begging you to tell me because I've always wanted to work for like a real radical feminist organization where I could like make my money that way and they don't fucking exist. So if you find one, please let me know. Okay. I think it's so funny that he's like before we get to these tweets, these first two tweets, he's tweeting this during the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. And like it's I don't think most people believe her. So the fact that he's saying this right now is particularly insane. Lupita says, how disconnected from reality do you have to be to think that battered women aren't one of the most sympathetic victims in society? I think they're sympathetic, but people, they just look at them and think, oh, I should feel bad for her. What do they actually do about it? Nothing. It's like a very passing sympathy. It's like a very intangible sympathy. Literally, if a woman just says she was abused, people will believe her with zero evidence, LMAO. Okay, but do we remember Me Too? That was not the case for Me Too. Every fucking man and his dog was there at Me Too, being like, we shouldn't believe her because I like this guy, and like, she's obviously lying, blah, 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 whatever. Guten Abend, Frau. Okay. Um, Here we have a woman. She says, to be fair, I wasn't believed for much of what I went through, although I find it horrific. Depp has so much evidence against Amber Heard. Most of it she recorded LMAO, and they're like, this is why women aren't believed. You believe men. Like, no, I believe evidence, and the evidence points to Amber Heard. I don't want to like adjudicate the whole Amber Heard situation, but I just want to say, like, as someone who grew up in like a very, very abusive household, um, a lot of these people and their hot takes on abuse just shows that they have like no fucking idea what long-term abuse is like. Um, like they really, really have no idea the experience of being in a long-term abusive situation and how that like warps your mind in the long run. Um, yeah, anyway. Yeah. Okay. So Limpita goes on. Oh, I'm not saying that all women are believed all the time, definitely not. But I do think it's a bit ridiculous for some of these people to claim that there's extreme stigma against female domestic violence victims when that's just not true. Um, Case in point, there is only one, maybe two, I need to check, one female only rape crisis center in all of Canada. Clearly, he's right. Clearly, everyone respects female domestic violence survivors. Um, and they have no problems and they're just making it up because they want more sympathy, and the feminists are just making it up and exaggerating it because they want people to feel bad for them. Mm. Mm. Someone else just messaged me. I think this is the first time that my TikTok and my YouTube have overlapped. Okay. Okay. This one I find so ridiculous. Okay, so Heterodorks podcast says, I mean, we can't see the whole tweet, but we can read some of it. These parents know that the desistance rate is very high. They are reading the detransitioners' stories. It isn't that parents don't care. They just cannot live with themselves if their kids aren't quote unquote true trans. Then it goes on. I mean, you can go look for the tweet if you want. Okay. Limpida replied, let's also not ignore the ones who actually actively get off on sexualizing and mutilating their children. Most of them are moms. Okay. I'm not sure how much I've talked about this on this channel, but I have like major issues with ROGD parents. Just like all of my interactions with them have been like extremely fucking suspicious to me. And I know that I have like a lot of issues with parents in general because of like my abusive upbringing, and that I know that I project that onto them. But like I do not, when I meet an ROGD parent, and some of you might be offended by this and might think I'm crazy and whatever, but like you think what you want to think, but like I've been around for a while and this is like my assessment of the situation. Whenever I enter into a situation with a parent of an ROGD kid, my assumption is not that this is a perfect, amazing parent and their kid is messed up for some inexplicable reason. My assumption is you've done something in some way to contribute to this happening. So I just want us to get that off to start with. I do not, when I see an ROGD parent, what is ROGD? I don't even, I contest the concept of ROGD actually. I think that there is like a social aspect, but I think ROGD is like a way too simplistic explanation. ROGD is rapid onset gender dysphoria. It is a term that was coined by Lisa Littman in 2019, I want to say. Somebody correct me. It basically is the her she, her original paper on it was like a hypothesis that was, look, we're seeing that the teenage girls are transitioning in clusters of social groups of their friends. So clearly this is not um it's not like an internal thing if it's being externally motivated. That's basically what ROGD is. Anyway, so when I see an ROGD parent, my first thought is not this is an innocent, amazing, perfect person. Okay. However, the people that I know who, while transitioning, experienced sexual violence from a parents were all from their fathers. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Obviously. Obviously, there are some women who do the same vile shit that men do. But what the fuck is he talking about? Like, did he meet one person one time where their mother was like this? Like, literally, there's a BBC article. I actually have it on my channel somewhere. It's the first article I ever did a reaction to. There's a BBC article from, I want to say, 2019 about the first round of whistleblowers. It was at the time when everybody became aware that 16 clinicians had left the Tavistock in the last 2 years, and that they were having trouble like the with the turnaround was like really high. Um one of them literally was like, yeah, looking back now, I'm pretty sure one of the dads really wanted his kid to be on Lupron so that the kid wouldn't grow up because he was a pedophile. Okay, whatever. Oh, here, this is particularly heinous. This is one of the first tweets I saw when I was looking up this guy. I don't think it's accidental that so many radical feminists are trans widows. Okay, I just want to clarify here. Um, he's putting the cart before the horse. It, if you talk to many trans widows, which I will admit I haven't spoken to tons of them, but I've read a lot of their blogs and websites, and I have spoken to a few of them. Usually, what happens is they basically peak while they're being abused by their Tim husband. That's the aha moment where they're like, oh, like self identity doesn't change anything. Like he's an abusive man, right? Then once they've peaked, they go on the internet, find other women who've peaked, and then they're like, oh. And I would argue even most of the trans widows that I'm aware of are not even really radical feminists. I would categorize them as gender critical. Okay? Yeah. Mm. Anyway, So he's saying that like they were radical feminists before they got abused. That is not the case. Okay. I mean, it's just not. You go look up your trans widows for yourself, look up their stories. That's not the case. Yeah, Leslie says she doesn't know any radfems that are trans widows. Yeah, I don't either. I can't think of any. They're all gender critical. Okay. Many of them were radfems well before they became trans widows. This is so weird to me because a lot of the time it seems like he's using the word radfem to mean libfem. But if you were a libfem dating a Tim or married to a Tim, wouldn't you be encouraging and validating and supporting his transition? I mean, not to say that it wouldn't be tough for you, obviously, but it's just, it doesn't make any sense the way that he's trying to like stick these things together. Jennifer says, I'm a trans widow, I just say feminist. Yeah. Um, anyway. Okay. I almost never see a trans widow who became a radical feminist after the fact. This is completely incorrect. And I have people who can corroborate that observation. Who are these people? Send them to me, bro. I guess when you believe all heterosexual sex is rape and tell your husband to read Salonis. Okay, let's pause here. The women I know who think that all heterosexual sex is rape, most of them are lesbians. And the ones who are not lesbians do not have sex with men. So they wouldn't go ahead and fucking marry a man. He makes it sound like they had this belief that like heterosexual sex is rape, right? And they love the Scum Manifesto written by Valerie Solonis, which is like Society for Cutting Up Men. It's like a misandry type thing. That they were into all of the misandry stuff, and then they decided they hate so men so much they're gonna go marry one. What the fuck are you talking about, bro? What are you talking about? Okay, whatever. I guess when you believe all heterosexual sex is rape and you tell your husband to read Salonis, it probably becomes preferable for a weak, pussy whipped man like that to start fantasizing about being a woman so he doesn't feel bad about touching his frigid, borderline wife. Okay, so he's basically saying, like, you emasculated him, so of course he turned into a woman. And, like, the way that he says you emasculated him was just by, like, having feelings and opinions. Like, not even doing it's not even an action that the wife has taken to emasculate the husband. It's just thinking things about him he doesn't like. Dude, if this is your situation, you should not become a woman. You should fucking get divorced. Jesus Christ. Yes, I know. Um, HA says this guy doesn't know the first thing about radical feminism. How can he spread that misinterpretation of intercourse by Dworkin? Yeah, I know. I I didn't want to go on like a 30-minute tangent about it, but I know a tweet. It was a tweet earlier. I know what you're talking about. One of the ones I didn't read. Okay. Also, again, he is like resenting men who are getting laid, like calling them pussy whipped. Meanwhile, he's like a literal fucking incel. Okay. Okay, but how does this make any sense? This tweet after this tweet probably also gives him an excuse to leave her because he doesn't think men should have the autonomy, but women do. What? This doesn't make any sense in so there's the reason that they're transitioning is because they're staying with the wife, but once they transition, then they think that it is possible to leave. But then why are they still transitioning? It doesn't make any sense. Um it's the woman's fault, says Frau. Of course. Thanks, Frau. Never would have occurred to me without this man and you both telling me so. I thank so much. Okay. Dude, what is this tweet? Butch lesbians will inject themselves with tea at group orgies for the raw sexual thrill. And then, which also, like, he makes it sound like it's like meth or ecstasy or something. Like, the moment you inject it, you like feel it. Like, you immediately get turned on. I mean, I haven't taken tea, but somebody in the audience who has, tell me this is not how it works because I know this is not how it works. And then turn around and claim patriarchy made them want to be men. I just, what a fucking asinine, navel gazing bullshit. Okay. Cucked. Like, do you guys know what cucked means? I don't really want to, like. define it. You can go Google it on Urban Dictionary. But like the fact that he's using this word unironically is like another. This is like incels. Like there are very few demographics of men who use this word unironically. They're incels and MRAs. Well, unlike frat boys who are joking around. Okay. Completely cucked mindset. I have zero respect for. You have no. Okay, wait. Actually, let me read Duncan's tweet first. Um, Dragon Fox says, "Wow, can you imagine spending your life dreaming up this shit? He doesn't need to dream it up. There are forms of men who who radicalize each other with this crap." So Duncan, who I also consider to be one of like, I mean, I don't really like any GC men. There was one GC man that I thought was kind of decent, and then recently he's been growing up with this like super over the top misogynist. So I don't really like any GC men. I just don't like men. I mean, you know, if you're on my channel, you know. Okay. Duncan says, I don't think they do. Not in huge numbers and nothing like the army of women hating incels. But let's imagine for a moment man hating women existed. So what? Why would that be a threat or a problem, really? So some women hate me because I'm a man? Okay. So what Duncan is getting at is that like even if women um hate men, like how does that affect men? Because it's like a very small number and they're not organized and not doing anything about it. I completely agree with that. Limpida, completely cucked mindset. I have zero respect for you. You have no backbone, no spine. You would roll over and show your belly to any woman threatening to pull a knife on your dick. This dude is deranged. Yeah, I know that Limpida runs a subreddit. I mean, a Discord. I know he runs a Discord. I'm sure that all the men are getting radicalized in there. It's disturbing because I'm sure that there's like gay men, gay detrans men, gay detrans men generally they generally get along with detrans women. They have a lot of sympathy, and also a lot of them transition because of like internalized homophobia. So even though men and women are like radically different and we transition for different reasons, like that aspect we have in common a lot of the time. So a lot of the time we've been able to find common ground and respect for each other. And it's concerning to me that he has like a detrans men's Discord. And I'm like, how many like not overtly misogynistic detrans gay men are in there being radicalized by these like heterosexual MRAs? Okay. Like just the language he uses here and like he basically is like, if you think that there's a handful of women in the world who hate men, and I really can't stress this enough, it's like a handful. And like, okay, also me, okay? I'm probably like the most man-hating radfem on YouTube. I have like male coworkers who like text me like, "Can you take my shift?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." Like, I have like positive relationships with men. I can like recognize that like men are a problem and not want to like associate with them like all the time and like try to prioritize women in my life in like a very intentional way at the same time as not being an asshole. It's actually possible, guys. Believe it or not, it's possible to not be an asshole. Clearly, like let's move on to the next tweet. Okay. No, no, no. Possible person. He's not a GC. He's a D trans. That's part of the problem. Um, that's why the stream is called "It's Coming from Inside the House" because he's D-trans. So part of a lot of what's going on with the GCs is they're playing identity politics, which to me is so fucking ironic. I can't get over it. Like when trans women are over the top misogynist and then other trans activists support them and all that crap, the GCs they will look and they'll say, "Oh, look, it's identity politics." He is saying really misogynist stuff, but because he has a identity, a trans identity, they can make excuses for him. That's what's happening here. This guy is over the top misogynistic, over the top men's rights activist, like, you know, crazy shit. Uh, and oh, we can't criticize him because he's detrans. There was another tweet in this thread. Somebody else, I can't, maybe it's later in the thread. Does somebody know what I'm talking about? Like, so there's this thread where he says this, And then somebody replied to him, he said something else, but it was very clearly like, I mean, he's already like saying here basically that women get abused by their husbands because the women are frigid bitches. But there was another reply to this where he said it like outright. Maybe it was taken after this because you can see these taken pretty recently. There's not that many likes on the tweets. Okay. Feminists are screeching shrews with their own perverse agenda. Like, dude, how does this guy not come from a men's rights activist forum or an incel forum? Lorelai, are you still here? You got to mention. I mean, I assume it's you. How many Lorelais are there on Twitter? Okay. Let's read the whole thing since Lorelai gets a mention. The feminists do not care. Sorry. Okay. The feminists do not care, nor will they accomplish anything. They are screeching shrews with their own perverse agenda, which is itself just a flavor of the kinds of social constructionism and critical theory that spawned transgenderism in the first place. Dude, do you think because you can use big words that you make sense? Your big words don't make sense, bro. You're stupid. Okay. These women are not to be trusted, Lorelai especially. She cannot be honest about what she's said. I remember Marjorie from my early days in this part of Twitter too, angry that I, as a man who had AGP, bothered to say anything. It's since gone now. Okay, well, I thought he was gonna be more specific why he doesn't like we're nearing the end and it hasn't even been 3 hours. All right. Dude, who is he spending his time around? I also don't understand why he's so concerned that these like he seems very clearly to think that women deserve any kind of violence that comes their way, right? Oh, Max says so he's admitted he's an AGP. Yeah. Hasn't he written a Substack about that or something? I think he's pretty open about it. And he's also straight, right? Yes, Dr. Bean, exactly this. Again, it reminds me of the whole thing. You can't question their experience because it's their experience thing that we are told to follow by the TRAs. I will question his analysis all I bloody like. Exactly. That's my biggest issue with this. Like, well, not my biggest. One of my issues with this. Like I said, like these like GC institution people who are liking this guy, platforming this guy, befriending this guy, all this crap. Um yeah, they're behaving the identical way. Like it's groupthink at this point, I think, which is so unfortunate. I was just talking to Rachel about this last night. Like, and I'm sure there's a bunch of you in the chat who feel the same way. When I first peaked and came to the dark side, I thought, "Oh shit, these people can think for themselves. I'm never going to fall into groupthink again. I'm never going to be in an environment where groupthink is encouraged and like questioning is punished." Here we are, though. Here we are. I'm making this stream. I'm expecting a bunch of people to report it, send me nasty emails and shit about it. Um, okay, I don't understand why he's critical of like moms pimping out their daughters. Doesn't he want that based on everything he said so far? I guess no, it's because he wants private ownership instead of public ownership. Okay. Um, he really thinks that the fact that men want to have sex with women means that women have power over men. That is like the most backwards, stupid crap ever. I mean, I know it's like a misogynist concept. Like I'm not unaware of it, but it's just so dumb. Okay. You must take that space. Yeah, and then every time a man tries, there's some ugly bitch with a Venus tattoo telling us we're speaking over women and how come we're not centering women, but thanks for letting us know how you really feel. Okay, but bro, I thought you were like some confident guy and like men are better leaders and men are better thinkers and all this crap. If a woman really is telling you you shouldn't be here because this is for women or like I'm centering women and you're not and she's critical of you, who fucking cares? Why does it get to you so much? Why are you taking it personally? Mm. Um, Frau Fantastic says there's no such thing as a quote unquote reasonable transection. Oh, okay, no. This is a quote from Tinsel of Trans Widows' Voices. There's no such thing as a reasonable transsexual, just like there's no such thing as a reasonable wife beater. Paraphrasing from Tinsel of Trans Women's Voices. Oh, here's the thing. Remember I said he replied to that and someone replied to it and then he replied to that? Okay. So Valkyrian says, I'm going to just scroll up quickly to give context. This is the thread. So it's not accidental that so many radical feminists are trans widows. Many of them are radfems before. Um, you know, they're frigid. They're frigid. They think that like heterosexual sex is rape, so they emasculate their husbands, and their husbands transition like the poor husband. Okay. Here, Valkyrian says, men become fetishists and abuse their wives because their wives are feminists and quote unquote frigid. Yeah, it doesn't sound personal at all. By the way, the misogynist logic that women are to blame for all male behavior, violence, criminality, and sexual abuse is as old as time. Ronnie replies, is it impossible to disagree with someone without putting words in their mouth? This is so hilarious. This is so hilarious. And then Limpita replies, I did say this and I stand by it because I call it like I see it. This person was trying to like defend him and he's like, nope, I'm an outright misogynist. Okay, dude. I mean, honestly, the one thing I like about Limpita is that he tells us what he really thinks. He's not trying to pretend that he's someone he's not, and I like that. I want to know who I'm dealing with. Are you a homophobe? Tell me you're a homophobe. Then I can know what I'm dealing with. You know what I mean? Like I like this. He's a misogynist. He told us he's one. Good. Now we know. Okay. let's let's keep going. Michelle says detransition does not imply letting go of delusions. Completely agree. Lupita says, I did say this and I stand by it because I call it like I see it. The trans widows who are most active on Twitter admit to being longtime radfems. Who are they? Who are they? I don't know who these women are. Something about them attracted AGPs or stirred up AGP and their husbands, and they're projecting now. Relationships are always two-way. Okay, this thing about FGM. Yeah, it is women who actually do the FGM, but why are they doing it? Because they know that men will not want to marry their daughters. Like, okay, the countries that do FGM, the cultures that do FGM, by and large, the situation is like this, at least as far as I understand it. If you have some kind of different understanding or different context, please share it. A lot of the times, the women are not making their own money or having their own resources. The only way for the women to survive is to be married to a man. So the mother is concerned. I'm not trying to justify it, I'm just explaining it and how these people are very stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. The mother is concerned, oh, the daughter needs to marry a man. so she can be like taken care of and whatever and not starve to death and all that crap. Because she can't work, she doesn't know how to work, she's not allowed to work in that country, whatever it is. So they do the FGM on their daughter to like prepare them for marriage to a husband, because without it, the men of those cultures think that they're like dirty and gross. Like they think there's something obscene about a woman being able to experience sexual pleasure, so they want to remove that so that the sex for the women can only be painful. Then they think that's like good, that's good, that's someone that can be their wife. Like that's why they're doing it. So they're literally, but this is like so out of touch to just be like, yep, the women just do it to each other. Like, why are they doing it? Okay. Again, I'm not trying to defend it. I'm just saying like they don't have an understanding of what they're talking about. We already read that one. Oh, okay. There's another part to this one. Okay. So I'm gonna reread it because I first read it like an hour and a half ago. No, like 90 minutes ago. No, I mean, yeah, an hour ago. Okay. So lesbians know how to love women so much better and so much purer than men do. Is that why you guys move in together after knowing each other for 2 weeks, smoke massive amounts of weed to feel anything in each other's presence, and be each other senseless all the time? So here's his expansion on that. Perhaps my most not safe for work take yet, and perhaps the least significant of all time, but I have noticed that the types of women who keep moaning about the lack of pleasurable orgasms from their male partners are usually women who are addicted to vibrators and or hooking up with strangers. Addicted to vibrators. Dude, what are you talking about? This is just more incel shit. Like, I don't know how to make a woman feel good, so I feel inadequate next to a vibrator. That's what this tells me. This is, I think, what he means too when he's like, women need like power tools to have sex with each other or something. I'm like, do you think lesbian sex is like predicated on the use of vibrators? Like, what are you talking about? Okay. You're right, Aqua. Thank you for calling us out, us lesbians. Mm. The orgasm gap isn't a meaningful political concern. This is the kind of shallow narcissistic analysis you'll get from radfems. Yeah. This is what they're worried about. They'll castigate the male orgasm itself as disgusting, and then say women aren't having enough of their own. Just incel crap. He's just jealous that he's not having sex with women, basically. Or if and when he's had sex with women, he hasn't been able to make them orgasm, so he is making himself feel better by being like, no one, it's like normal or something. Concern or over quote unquote orgasm gap is Coomer slash groomer nonsense. If you need any further proof that radfems have sex addicted maniacs among their ranks constantly running to cover each other, this is it. I don't think it's sex addicted to be like most of the women I know who have sex are unsatisfied by the sex. Like, oh, you're referencing something from the 80s? Oh, I don't know what you're referencing, Aqua. Um, Carol, what? Him and another dude claimed women numb their pussy muscles with vibrators, and then that's why they can't orgasm with men. He doesn't know how vibrators work. Also, how vaginas work. Like, it's a muscle. Like, it's not like one thing happens to it and it's stuck like that forever. What the fuck are you talking about? Um, Myron says this is literally pure incel rhetoric shit. Fucking agree. This is it. Okay. So, I'm going to check. Some of you did email me something, I think. Okay. Carol sent me this. Boof Fairy, I don't know who the fuck that is. I have no idea who this is the exact archetype of guy I was in high school. Seeking safety within mobs of women, doing their bidding when the job calls for it. I defend the sanctity of straight women from dyke perverts like Carol. Ah! Carol! You get a shout out. Who dehumanize and shame them and make me a misogynist. And it makes me a misogynist. Okay, let's I defend the sanctity of straight women. The sanctity of straight women. What I hear when he says that is men have an absolute right to straight women, and if there's women who are interested in women, that's getting in my way. That's what I hear when he says the sanctity of straight women. But I mean, who knows what he's trying to say? From dyke perverts like Carol. Like I said, an overtly lesbophobic incel who dehumanize and shame them and makes me a misogynist. Um, Carol, I mean, do you know what he's talking about? What have you done to dehumanize and shame straight women? Like, I haven't seen everything you've tweeted forever, but I've never seen you say anything. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he made it. I don't, what is he even talking about? And it has 9 likes. Well, at the point it was only taken an hour after it was tweeted. I wonder if this tweet is still up, and I wonder how many likes it has now. Okay. Limpida. He's doing this because he gathers a narcissistic supply from all these women who hate me and love him. He's one of the good ones, i.e., a man too spiritually castrated to let other men be men. He must shame that behavior on behalf of the women, granting his safety in numbers. Oh, you stand by women. Damn, Carol. I can't believe I'm friends with you. You must suck. Okay. Okay. So, I don't know who this Boof Fairy person is, but from the context, I assume this is a GC trans man. I mean, a GC gay man. Um, and he's basically jealous that the women like this man and support this man, but don't like and support him. I mean, as far as I can tell from this. Okay. So I don't think anybody sent me any more screen caps. Yeah. Oh, wait, no. Oh. Okay. Carol said it's based on a meme where she made like a joke that women are happier with vibrators. I mean, I guess that's dehumanizing and shaming them. Like, okay, now that I know that context, it seems to me like he thinks with straight women should be proud that their men can't give them orgasms. To acknowledge that they'd be getting more orgasms with a vibrator than with a man is like shaming them. I mean, that's what I get from context now. Like, which is like again, like what a self-own, bro. Okay. Um it sounds like Travis. Yeah, dude. Oh. Wait, no. I don't know who Travis is. I was thinking of Curtis. Who is Travis? Okay. So, somebody, Dr. Bean, sent me a breakdown of of a voice chat that he was in. I'm just gonna read out her notes generally because we don't have a recording of this and I don't have like an opinion on it. I mean, I think most people have distanced themselves from him in the last couple days, but the fact that he's been tweeting like this since like March, and then there were people like platforming him on like in their organizations and their YouTube channels and stuff. Well, one of the YouTubers who's platforming his is also an MRA, so it's not surprising. But okay, so this is what uh, Bean Sprout got from a Twitter space she was in that he was in. He got on Tumblr at age 14. He was on 4chan prior to that. For those of you who don't know about 4chan, that is a great place to be radicalized as an MRA and an incel. He started watching porn at the age of 9. Um, he dated this girl, the one who he blames everything for, when he was 14. He became a non-binary at 15 years old. The girlfriend became trans-identified at the same time. She detransitioned 2 years later. He went from NB to Tim at 16, so he was only an NB for 1 year. Oh yeah, Momo's here. Mama! Mama! Okay. He had agoraphobia in college. He joined the BLM cult. He started ideologically witch hunting the non-woke. He got the same treatment. Almost made homeless, segregated from the rest of the house, couldn't cook, etc. Whilst living with them, started HRT from Planned Parenthood. Extremely mentally ill and had OCD psychosis. He has autism spectrum disorder. He's emotionally immature. I appreciate the notes, but I don't think I think we all got that. Thank you. um, at 21, he began HRT. Okay. Stopped speaking to his ex. Set off on long periods of soul searching. Relationship for 8 years. Oh wow, that's a pretty long relationship. Okay, I just want to say, um, I know that in relationships, like that can be like very intense. Um, that's what he says about himself. Oh my god, B. um, actually, I think today, Libs of TikTok put out a video. I hate her so much. But the video was good. I don't know where else to reference it from. What was the name? Jeebs Forever. Or something. I'm trying to remember the name of the TikTok account. But it's literally just this lesbian being like, I was dating this girl and she insisted that I was a man, and I these are all the reasons I was a man. She basically convinced me that I was a man, and I transitioned, like at least socially. And she said as soon as she got out of the relationship, she realized it was all bullshit. I've talked about this before, that there are a lot of bisexual women who date masculine lesbians who have like an obsession with getting the lesbian to transition, like making the lesbian behave like a man, making the lesbian have sex like a man, making the lesbian look like a man. Like they're obsessed with it. So this is definitely a thing. This is definitely a reason that some people are transitioning. But the fact that he's making it like as if this is like the origins of why all women are evil is like really fucking stupid. Okay. Oh, he started. Oh wow, that's a pretty short like time. I don't know, whatever. So he started hormones right before the pandemic started. A few months before the pandemic started. Um. So no surgery for him. 2.5 years of social transition followed by 1.5 years of HRT. 1 year after the breakup, realized he didn't like being trans. Made a friend in a support group and she detransitioned. He realized something was happening. realized detransition existed. Worried he'd kill himself. At first ideological, and then thought trans was medical. Oh yeah, so he went from like the too cute to the true scum, like the well, some people have like like dysphoria and they need to transition. No, fucking exactly. Fucking exactly, bro. Exactly. Like I'm not saying I don't have any compassion for like the experience of this. Obviously I do. But is it justification to like call Carol a fucking dyke and say that she's shaming women by like basically knowing what makes women sexually satisfied? Right, okay. So he read up about ROGD, testimonies, etc. He then realized the problem isn't if I come off HRT, the problem is if I consider myself male, I may want to kill myself. Okay, this is the period in which most detrans men actually like reach out and try to talk to other detrans men is this exact period when they realize like this is the state I'm in, like these are my options. I mean, they what they consider to be the options are you know, different, but like this kind of thing is like I'm gonna kill myself was one of the options. Um if I noticed something about my body, including penis, I would panic and collapse, etc. I was upset about being a man. Um I was worried I would go sterile, have problems, dementia, etc. Okay. December 2021, had an epiphany to come off of HRT. This is what I mean though when I say people are new. And it's not that I don't think you should have opinions when you're new, like or that you should share your narrative when you're new. But so he's been detrans for less than a year. In the grand scheme of things, to me, that's like a very short amount of time, especially considering that he was trans over a period of like 9 years, right? Like to me, I kind of think about it like if you stretch something really far for a long time, it doesn't just snap back right away. You have to like slowly like put it back into place, you know? That's kind of how I think about it. And it's like these people who are like they transition for a very long time, they get that mentality, that mindset for like a very long time. You can't just wake up one day and turn it off. Like it takes a really long time to like process and like undo all that. Well, as much as it can be undone or whatever. But you get what I'm saying. So to me, he's very new to all of this. He should be in the state, like maybe it's not my place to say, but this is my opinion. When you're this new to detransition, oh, bye, Frau. Your priority should be like, what have I been through? Like, how did it affect me? What am I doing right now? How's my mental health right now? Like this kind of thing. You need to be like focusing on yourself and how you're getting better and how things are getting better for you and how you were affected and stuff, and not just like externalize everything and broadcast everything. Cause like I don't think that leads to anything positive for like anyone. Like one of the older detrans women I know, and older I mean as in like she detransitioned before like me and Carol and our generation of desisters and identified women and stuff. She said, "Don't do your bleeding online." That's what this guy's doing. I mean, to an extent. Okay, whatever. He thought he would have he would have problems with regulating his anger, his libido, stuff like that. Better to live with it than do anything else. Was fast-tracked timeline after getting addicted to smoking, which helped. Oh, interesting. Psychotic breakdown first month of January 2022 and got withdrawal from HRT. Since then, it has been smooth sailing. No AGP, no dysphoria. Here's like a quote at the bottom. It says, take male female oppressor oppressed dynamics and marries it with whatever you want to be. Weird. All right, so yes, very much agree. Or Carol says this is the risk of putting new detrans people into public. Yes. Um, honestly, is it weed or is it tobacco? Because it just says smoking in here. It doesn't say what he's smoking. But yeah, I totally agree. It's like, especially because I've been around for like forever. I've been around almost 6 years now as like a desister, and which is like so fucking long in detrans time, uh, I see the people who show up, say crazy shit. Oh, nicotine. Oh, thank you, Bean Sprout. Um, say crazy shit and they disappear a month later. But it's like the impact they had by saying their crazy shit doesn't go away even though they've disappeared. It's changed like the collective consciousness of what's going on to most people who are paying attention. Um, I don't know. Carol says, I wish these therapists would put their damn effort into helping detrans instead of the fucking parents. Very much agree. Like, honestly, I don't know what some of you think. For all I know, some of you have been to these like parents retreats or parents groups online and stuff like that. And like honestly, if you need some kind of support, obviously you should get it. Like you should find other people to talk to and whatever. Like you do you, obviously. But when I see these therapists specifically creating groups for parents, and especially when I know what they're talking to the parents about, it really seems like a money grab to me. Like detransitioners don't have any money by and large. A lot of the detransitioners I know, they've suffered with homelessness, um, uh they're unemployed or they have like a minimum wage service job or they work in a warehouse, something like that. Like they're not well off. They don't have health insurance, stuff like that. But the parents, they're willing to pay out thousands and thousands of dollars to like go to retreats and attend virtual like workshops and stuff like that. And like I understand like because I know some human rights lawyers who like their human rights stuff, they basically do it all for pro bono, and then they'll do like tax law or something like that, like a state law, something like that for like 2 days a week. And I understand that you need to like balance out like having an income, and especially when it's like an activist things, like you need to have money to like put into the activist stuff, right? I understand that, but it really, I totally agree with you. Yeah, it's very very money hungry looking to me. Um, yeah, there was one therapist who she just had like a Patreon, or I don't know if she's on Patreon anymore. I think she used a different platform now. Um but she had a Patreon, and so it was like, as Patreons go, it was a bit expensive, but considering what you were getting, it was pretty cheap. I think like the highest tier was like $60 a month and the lowest tier was like $20 a month. And it was like you had direct access to this therapist who who gave you like advice and like like worksheets and like videos, and like she would even do like one-on-one videos about specific issues you had, right? And to me it's like, okay, she was making money, but she was mostly trying to make it accessible to people. Like now a lot of what these therapists are doing like directly with parents, it seems like they're very money hungry. um and it really really rubs me the wrong way. um oh, Carol says there was inner disagreement over this. Several therapists left the group. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not going to name the group. I mean, if somebody in the live chat wants to name it, they can, but I'm not naming it. Okay. Okay, guys. I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Uh, Probably. Well, let me look at my schedule. Actually, there's another topic I wanted to. Oh no, wait. There's something else. Somebody sent me this. Um, okay, sorry. It's on this app. Yes, here it is. All right. I wish a lot of these cool women on. Um, why are you thanking me, Carol? What have I done? Uh, oh, because I said I was ending. No, okay. Here, I found the thing I'm talking about. Okay. So, this woman, this is just her observations. She says that she has been kind of keeping track of his Twitter since he was part of that big D-trans conference because she was interested to see his perspective. Also, okay, I just want to say, so, oh, for talking about this. Yeah, no problem. You know me. I'm happy to talk about it, the controversial shit all the time. Um, okay, I just want to say, it took me about a year to realize this, and I didn't really like solidify in my mind until after post gender funk. For those of you who don't know, me and Carol, she wasn't the original co-host, but the original co-host doesn't want to be involved or known anymore, so I'm not going to mention her. But me and Carol had this podcast called Post Gender Funk, where we like interview detransitioners about different stuff. It was really, really interesting, like about eating disorders and dysphoria and like self-perception of sexuality and like transition and detransition, like all kinds of cool stuff. It wasn't until that it really, really solidified in my mind. You cannot talk to detransitioners unless they've been detrans for at least 2 years because they are in a state of flux. And there's so many things that will change where they fall on what their experience was. Was it predatory? Was it a choice? What is trans? Is it a real thing, but they are not it? Or it's all lies and they were lied to? Like all of these things, they change a lot. Um, Another thing that's in flux is what are you doing about your detransition? You want to be known as you want to be known as a detransition advocate. Okay, are you going to feel that way in a year when you have just detransitioned in the last 2 years? I think you're really like processing, you're in a state of processing. Okay, so to me, like in my advocacy work, which I don't really talk about on YouTube, but I have been very, very careful to not associate with anybody who has not been detrans for more than 2 years if I'm putting them in any kind of position that has pressure or any kind of position that will have a long lasting effect. Because I don't want them to have not really considered what it means to put their face, to put their name out there. I want them to really understand and come to terms with what that means and what the effect of that is going to be. So, anyway, what is my point about all this? The fact that this man, who has been detrans for less than a year, was put on a panel, a high profile panel, within a few months of detransitioning, is mind bogglingly insane to me. Like, it is so, so stupid. So stupid. Like, there is no going back from what he did. So, okay, a lot of the women that me and Rachel like used to watch on YouTube, the detrans women, they posted their videos, and it was like them with an iPhone. like walking around a tennis court or something, or like behind their apartment building, and their videos would get like 100 views because it was all us sharing them with each other. And then like 2 years later, they will take all their videos down because, oh, I'm going into this career path and I can't have this in my face associated with these perspectives, blah blah blah, right? Limpita doesn't have that option now because these people, I'm not trying to like defend him, but I'm just saying the fact that he's been detrans for less than a year and that he put on this huge platform to me is insane. The people who are putting him on that platform, they're not really, I think they don't really care about what is the long-term impact that having this person's face and story and name out there is going to have. And I mean, I know he is like anonymous, but like, yeah, this is the conclusion I've arrived at. Beansprout says the people who created that panel don't genuinely care about detrans women or women. Money is the priority. That's where I've arrived recently also. And it's quite disappointing because detransitioners have had our own stuff for years. We've had our own surveys, we've had our own support groups, we've had our own networks of doctors to recommend to each other and stuff, like on small scale, but it still existed, right? And so for like years, detransitioners have been waiting for like a large organization to lean on that will do everything for us. Cause like I said, like if you think about the detrans like timeline, you're really processing for 1 to 2 years. And usually, unfortunately, that's the 1 to 2 years where you feel the most impetus to like you're angry or you're upset and you want to like do something, right? But if your motivation is that you're angry and upset, it's not really like a long lasting motivation most of the time. Um, or just it's not sustainable, really, is what I'm trying to say. So when you think about it, detransition is making resources for ourselves. It makes sense why they're like far and few between, and they're usually not very long lasting. Like the projects are like pretty short term projects that we have with each other and stuff. It makes sense why that is like that. So because if you've been around for a long time and you view this cycle happening over and over, people jumping in and out every 2 3 years, then you're waiting for the non-detrans people to do something that is going to be long lasting. Okay, so I'm highly critical of fucking everyone. If you've been around my channel a while, you know this. A lot of people had a lot of hope about these organizations. I didn't have like a ton of hope. I was like, these people are sketchy. Cause like I had heard individual stories from like the women who've had therapy with them and they were like, yeah, these people are sketchy. And I'm like, okay. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's just so disappointing. It's really disappointing. Um, I think a lot of detrans people thought, oh, we can finally like stop doing all the work by ourselves because we'll have like people with funding and like a reputation and like mainstream acknowledgement who can do this stuff. And instead, it's become like I don't know. I mean, basically, I feel like it's all money based at this point, which is so unfortunate. Yeah, this is a good point, Beansprout. So Beansprout says when you look at all of these orgs, they typically tend to have the same people involved in one way or another. So before I get to the second sentence, I want to acknowledge why that is. I don't think it's necessarily nefarious, but it does lead to a problem. It's not nefarious because how many professionals, how many researchers, psychologists, psychiatrists, MDs are willing to put their entire career on the line, right? It's not a huge amount of people to put their entire career on the line, to sign off on papers, to be interviewed by newspapers and stuff. It's a very small group of people, okay? So that's why they're all the same people. But it leads to the problem that Beansprout is pointing out. So we now have a similar situation as with the TRA orgs. No diversity of approach. Yes. Um, uh, and it's sad because I know that there are therapists who have a diversity of opinions, but they are the ones who are not willing to publicly do anything because they're trying to protect their careers, right? Or their families or whatever it is that they're trying to do. Um, so the ones who are left are all in the same boat. Carol says it's disappointing and I had hope. You know, Carol, I was talking to someone about this yesterday, like the state of things generally at this point. And I'm honestly really devastated to be vindicated. Like, I didn't want to be proven right because I'm such a pessimist. Like, I'm so jaded at this point that I was like, this is all of this is like, Carol, like, you know me. You know I've not had any interactions with any of these big organizations. I don't want to be associated with them in any way. Not that they haven't asked me for anything, right? But I just don't want to be associated with them in any way. And I decided that very early on because I was like, these people are sketchy. And I'm so devastated to be proven right because I wish that like there could be something reputable for detrans people to go to that actually cared about us. Beansprout says, lol, same sis. It's being realistic though, not pessimistic. Yeah. Something else I wanted to say. Oh yeah, okay. So to kind of end out this stream. Actually, let me like take a sip of water and get comfy. I've been sitting in like the same position for like 2 hours. Mama. 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 Say hello. What do you So exactly. Carol says that's why I put my effort into my community now. Exactly. Possible person says I made a point of not getting involved online until I was really confident in my beliefs. Yes. That's very smart of you. Like it's like a self-protection. Possible person says I was well into my own analysis and beliefs 4 years ago, but I wouldn't say I was solidly re-identified and off everything for good until at least 2 years ago. So I don't even know where I am. Yeah, like it takes a lot of time. And for therapists who are fucking treating detransitioners to not understand this and not take that seriously, to me is like completely unfucking conscionable. Like it's unconscionable. Unfucking conscionable. That's a very long word. Okay. Okay, so this is the thing I wanted to talk about. My criticism of these, like the GC institution and the rise of the detrans men who have this type of perspectives. So he is a very extreme case, but there are men saying very similar things on Reddit and Twitter right now. There's a couple of them. Um, and I know that in private they're having these conversations, right? All of this ties into the whole we need to understand AGP, we need to be more compassionate to the men, all of this crap. Like, I think what happens is when you are thank you, Bean Sprout. The fact that you're like such a smart woman who thinks I'm smart is like very flattering. Thank you. uh because I'm like a college dropout. Anyway, uh all of this ties into this. It's the same issue. What I generally my general like if I take a step back, my general observation is this. The 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 GC institution, were the people who eventually became that in the last 2 years or a year and a half, when they looked at who are the detransitioners, they saw a lot of women and a lot of almost entirely lesbian women at that point, right? And because of this, the narratives they were hearing, the analysis they were hearing, the experiences they were hearing were all female experiences. And I'm using this word in like the 1980s way of the word, not the current way of the word. They were very female identified in their thinking. They were seeing the things from the female perspective. Okay? They were empathizing with the females and seeing why the females doing this. What is the effect this is having on them, right? As soon as everyone went, oh, we need to know what's going on with the men. And like I said at the very beginning of the video, it's a good thing to know what's going on with the men. We should understand how they're different, how they're the same. How does it affect the women? How does the men stuff affect the women? How does the women stuff affect the men? Like, it's good. Understand these things is good. But in the last, like, 8 months or 6 months or whatever, with this whole we need to, like, center the AGPs thing, it's like a switch flipped. Everyone went from being female identified in their thinking to being male identified in their thinking. Now, when they see what's going on with the detrans women, they view it from the lens of how is this hurting the detrans men? They view it through the lens of how is this taking away from the detrans men? How is this detracting attention from the detrans men? So as soon as they started focusing on detrans men, like intentionally, specifically, immediately they like their priorities shifted. It's not like they were like, oh, we already know about this. And we're going to keep caring about this. We're going to add this thing beside it. It was like, we know and we care about this. Oh, the detrans men. Like, it just like disappeared. And the result of this is how many detrans women who were considering going to these organizations for help, which I would not advocate to do, but whatever, are not going to do it now. How many detrans women who were considering getting therapy from these people or other therapists that these people recommend are now thinking, oh my gosh, one of them liked a tweet where a man said that trans widows are being abused because they're frigid. I'm an abuse survivor. Can I trust this woman? I don't think they understand how much of a devastating impact this is going to have on them in the long term. They're not going to see it for now because everyone is a misogynist. So when they see misogyny, generally, like the way I see it, generally people are like, "Oh, that's good. That's great. I like that." Right? But I think generally they have broken trust with the D-trans women. And this is going to have a long, like, Wolf is a great example. So a lot of people like Wolf, and wow, this is like a real like tea stream. A lot of people like Wolf. For those of you who haven't been around very long or who don't know the inside scoop, D-trans women never do anything with Wolf. Why is that? Because very early on, even before Wolf was actually Wolf, like, but when there was meetings to consider what is Wolf going to become, like, what could we do as a group of women, they were already trying to exploit and weaponize D-trans women. Because of that, Wolf has never had any positive affiliations with any detransitioners. And Wolf has been around for quite a while. I'm not telling you guys what happened, but okay, I'll tell you one thing that happened. Maybe I'll take the stream down after. So there used to be a self-published document. I want to be very, very vague. A self-published document that was created by a bunch of detransitioned women. It was essays and poems and art about their detransition. They were almost entirely detransitioned radical feminist lesbians. Somebody from Wolf wanted to buy these and hand them out at Wolf meetings. And the response of the women that they contacted was, well, this is not for political reasons. We don't want our suffering and pain being used as like a gotcha or as whatever. Like they didn't want to be used in that way because it was their stories and their experiences, right? I'm not naming names, Michelle. You can say what you want to say. I'm not naming any names. So this woman kept saying, I'm not selling these to you for that purpose. Guess what happened? Somebody ordered individually one copy of this thing. They took out the staples, they photocopied it, they made hundreds of like pirated copies of this, and they handed that out at the meetings. I mean, that's like the one thing that I think is like semi-public, so I feel like I can tell that to you. The other stuff that I know is much more private, personal stuff that I don't feel comfortable sharing. But yeah, so but it was like a small indie self-published thing. I don't think nobody was going to take them to court. They have no money. Like, I get what you're saying, Bean Sprout. But like, so they did that early on, and since then, no detransitioned radical feminist women will associate with them at all. And that's like I said, that's one of the things they did. So I look at what's happening with these big GC organizations right now, and I'm like, you're doing that to yourself. That's what you're doing right now. I think there are a lot of detrans women who are not radical feminists or who are not feminists who don't really pay attention to what's happening with this specifically, who are not, they don't really, even if they knew, they probably wouldn't care that much. They probably think, oh, this is a one off, right? So they're going to continue to have detrans people associating with them. But I think the result of this is that detrans lesbians or detrans radical feminists will by and large just like keep their distance from them. And that is really unfortunate because I think that is a huge demographic of detransitioners. Anyway, uh what time is it? I actually might do another stream today because there's something else I really want to talk about, but it's like completely separate from this. So I want to do like a different stream. For those of you who come on my channel all the time, you know I do this. I'll stream for like 6 hours, but I'll do like 2 or 3 streams because I want them like broken up by topics. Yeah. That's like, I wish I could like tell you guys all the horrible shit that some of the radical feminists have done to detrans women. Like, I'm a radical feminist, so I kind of feel like I need to hold radical feminists to like the standard that they should be held to. You know what I mean? Anyway, I don't think that. Carol says you are a beast. Thanks, dude. I don't think that the people who are supporting these types of men right now really understand in the long term what they're doing to themselves and their organization and their group. And it's so unfortunate. Like, really, what a lot of the problems are with all of this is these people are out of touch with the women who have been activists on this issue for a long time. Like, there are some women, like Carol, you know, some of these women I'm talking about, who started like detrans advocacy in like 2012. Like, they've been around for 10 fucking years, which in detrans time is a very long time. Okay. Or 2008, like ridiculously long time. There's some women, they're very in the background at this point. But they're still there. And you know, like groups, like these big GC groups, if they really wanted to have an understanding of like what is the lifetime trajectory of detransitioners, like what is the stuff that you've tried that didn't work to help detransitioners, like if they really really wanted to make a big impact, they would be looking for these women and talking to them. Instead, they want to reinvent the wheel and cloister themselves from any criticism, and of course that will lead to like horrible shit, obviously. So yeah. Madam says this is what happens when you focus too much on the end goal of like an action and not the people that are actually involved in being harmed. Very much agree. Bean Sprout says, Benji, I totally agree. You gotta call that shit out from inside our own house. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to wrap this stream up and I'm about to start another stream in like 2 minutes. What was I going to talk about? Well, I'll remember it and I'll start another stream in a second. Okay. See you in a minute. Bye. Thanks for coming. Before I leave, as always, if you have something you want me to talk about, like some people have sent me transcripts or of like podcasts that are particularly crazy that I just haven't gotten to, or stuff like that. If you see stuff, really weird stuff that's going on within GC or radfem or dtrans or whatever, send it to me and maybe I'll make a video about it. Because like I feel people have a right to know what's going on, and there needs to be some kind of self-regulation, and I think that starts with self-awareness. That's basically what I think. Okay. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in a few minutes on my next stream. Okay, bye.